Yeah, a moonbow, it's a very rarefied thing. It's sort of like a unicorn. Unicorns, to my knowledge, don't really exist, but moonbows actually do, though I've yet to see one. But I think I titled it that because I think the pursuit for excellence as an artist is always seeking this thing that you believe is out there. But as close as you think you might get to it, it just gets further and further away. But that keeps us driven, that keeps us on the path to find that moonbow, to find excellence in our craft. First of all, I would describe myself as an artist, but the reason I think I can do that is because I live in constant balance with mania, the maniacal desire to create, and it's been like that my whole life. I think you can be made into a type of artist, but I think when it comes down to the final stretch, you have to have some inborn, innate qualities to become a meaningful artist. Successful, I think, I don't use that word too often because there's so many different measures of success, but a meaningful and impactful artist, I think those are born. As an artist, I think you're setting your own goals. You have to set your own measure of success so that you do not become distracted by other people's measure of success. And to do that takes extreme focus and tenacity. And the stamina to put in the long hours, to work when you don't want to work through painful periods, to work through joyful periods. What artists do is, we break down barriers and open new doors. And once again, I find that this is an extreme responsibility and an extreme privilege. And it just makes me happy to see artists do something that is not expected and not part of the norm. I mean, that's one of the biggest reasons I do this, is to define my own way and to find ways for other people. I think the breaking the rules can take many different forms, and it could be even in the smallest gesture. It might be saying, you know what, I don't think I'm going to go to that event tonight because I'm really expected to be there, but I don't want to. I want to be in my studio. And knowing that there's some people who might be upset by that, but they will respect you more because they know what you're doing. You're dedicating yourself to your craft, and at the end of the day, that is the #1 responsibility, I believe. It'd be great if readers can look at this, get a laugh out of it, get some knowledge from it, and find a lot of things that they disagree with. I look at this as a very sort of open format way of approaching artists to talk about maybe their educational process, how they educate and how they've been educated. And once again, it's a good way to maybe gather some perspective on what your own craft, path, and journey might be.
Art is always trundling around in this contested zone of visual representation, visual experience. There's a vapor trail on the surface of the water. Well, no, there isn't. But, I've got that kind of silly eye where I see vapor trails in water. If I'm asked what do I do or what I am, and I say artist, but when I say it, I know that it's a very odd-shaped building that I live in. The world is feeding all of us stuff all the time that we didn't mean to see. So if you don't really see, sense, smell, feel, get those little moments, which could be of any category, they're not in one category, but that's who you meet, how you meet them, what you see, how you see it. You've got to do something with those opportunities. They're frictive. There's a kind of something in there which you can make something of. And I think artists' job is to be very vigilant. And the form of vigilance, hilariously, can be, you could be nearly asleep and notice something. creative people usually get there walking backwards. That's why the language of career paths is not only horrid to hear, it's just ridiculous, because humans are more interesting than career paths. I suppose I hope that the book would make young people patient, because maybe that's all that skill is. Skill is kind of giving something the time it takes to do it while simultaneously being critical. If you've hurt your finger and you try to do up a button, you become really fascinated by how good you are at doing up buttons, which you learned to do. You never think about it. There's a hell of a lot of that in being a functioning artist. These are all to do with eating. It's a kind of mad place setting. How weird is it that the cup is the wrong way up?
What is the best way to answer this question? That does not require an hour's lecture. My name is Shirley Tse, and I have a studio practice where I make work and I exhibit them. And currently I am a co-director of the art program at Cal Arts. When I first got out of grad school, I was very much focused on making work. I'm not waiting for a museum to give me a show before I show my work. I find myself showing in someone's garages, someone's living room. We would even rent several rooms in a motel and do like weekend shows. We've done show in Vaughn's supermarket. It is a really kind of productive and fun era for me. Slowly, I gained the attention of galleries and museums, and that's how I'm starting to show in those places as well. In the race to celebrate professionalism, we should be celebrating amateurism at the same time. I think when I'm talking about being an amateur, I'm talking about the attitude of teaching yourself how to teach yourself, how to keep yourself informed and be curious so that you are open to things that interest you. So even though it will involve like a field or skills or knowledge or history that you're not familiar with, you will find a way to teach yourself how to know enough in order to do the work that you're interested to do. I have heard quite a number of young artists, while they're working on their own work, they started looking at other people's work, and then they were like, oh my God, this had already been done. I like what Duchamp said. Art is not so much about creating, but it's more about choosing. It's actually make it a lot more exciting that there's so much thing that is available for you to choose and combine and restructure and reframe. If I do come across with someone who have a very similar idea that I already have, I actually think that is really exciting because this shows a sort of evidence of collective intellectual commonality. We all see the sunset, but it will be interesting to see the sunset through your eyes, for instance, and that would not bore me if you have a really interesting way of showing me how to look at sunset. I think this collection of artists in this book provide a good range to look at all this different possibility of having an art practice. So in a way, you can look at the book as having this really fun dinner party with all these artists. And you get to ask, dinner question, and then they will have an answer for you. And I think that is kind of, exciting and fun.